Oh, happy Friday. It is that time. It's time for Yahoo Sports Daily. For the next 2 hours, we're rack stacked to pack, ready to get caught up on everything you need to know. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. Let's get right to it, my friend, because the NBA postseason is basically here. We got a couple other play-in action things we got to get to, but we've got plenty of playoff action starting this weekend. Real series, real impact, real playoffs after months of talking about everything else. So let's get right to the best part about the playoffs, which is drama. We're going to figure out some of the more dramatic storylines that we're going to get throughout the course of this thing. I get so happy when it's sports drama. I don't know why. All right, so let's start here, Caroline. The one player in the playoffs to you that has a chance to change their legacy the most this postseason is...
Oh, well, let's just say for the record, winning a championship changes your legacy for anyone, point blank, period. But I think somebody who has the opportunity to change his legacy the most, it's Jokic. It's Nikola Jokic. Winning a second championship. And might I add, carrying Denver to a second championship. Not just being part of a championship team, not just being a contributor on a second championship team, but carrying a championship team. Combined with, and let's just say he's carrying the team who wins finals MVP for the second time. So if Nikola Jokic has 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, and 3 league MVPs, you have to have the conversation that Nikola Jokic would be a top 10 player of all time. I mean, we're talking Michael Jordan, we're talking LeBron James, we're talking Wilt Chamberlain, we're talking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think Nikola Jokic belongs right in that same conversation of top 10, maybe top 15 if we want to be a little bit more conservative there, players of all time with 2 championships. I also think what that does is changes maybe our perception or the conversation surrounding Jokic. Fitz, you and I have talked about this a lot. Why can't we trust the Nuggets? Why is when Nikola Jokic drops a triple-double as he does on any given night, including 35 points and like 15 rebounds, why is that not immediately the lead on our show? Because if LeBron does that, throw age out the window, doesn't matter. If LeBron does that, that's probably the number one story on our show, on SportsCenter, on Get Up, so on and so forth. But when Jokic does it, it's like, Jokic, he does that. We're just so used to it. We've grown so accustomed to the greatness. When we talk about the hierarchy of the West, it is so clearly OKC, and then it is so clearly San Antonio. Then it's like, oh, yeah, and Denver is in there as well. We don't hold Jokic, I don't think, at least in daily conversation. We know Jokic is an MVP caliber player. We know that Jokic is one of the best players on the planet, but it just doesn't feel like the conversation surrounding Nikola Jokic encapsulates the dominance of the kind of player he is, at least appropriately. What's it going to take to start changing the daily narrative on Jokic? Well, a second championship and a second finals MVP will do just that.
You're right, 100%, by the way. I can't deny anything you just said. I just hate it. I hate that that's where we are. I hate that we're saying, well, a second championship, and then we'll have that conversation. Like, all right, dude, they got one. Like, it's so alarming to me. Clearly, I'm just, at this point, I'm a Jokic stan. I'm all in on this thing. I want the Nuggets to win the championship simply so that we're forced to pay attention to the guy that is currently the best player in the NBA. It ain't Wemby. It's not SGA. The best player in the NBA right now is Nikola Jokic. And you're right. Like, the more I keep thinking about it, the more it becomes abundantly clear that he may already belong on that top 10 list. In fact, great nugget for all the people that are just trying to figure out a reason to fall in love with Jokic. I saw a tweet that compared Jokic at the age of 30 to LeBron at the age of 30, and they went everywhere. And let me tell you, Jokic's season at the age of 30 versus LeBron's at the age of 30, Jokic was better in points, total rebounds, assists, blocks, field goal percentage, three-point percentage, free throw percentage, efficiencies. He was better at literally everything except for steals per game. That's the one category 30-year-old LeBron beat 30-year-old Jokic. So just a reminder that the best player in the NBA is Nikola Jokic. If I had an MVP vote, he would get it. It's dumb to me that it's going to take a second title, and there's still going to be jackasses out there that'll look at it and be like, well, I mean, that's 2, but really, like, look, I don't know what it's going to take for us to fall in love with Jokic, but I'm rooting for it now more than ever. Now, when we talk about changing legacy, because he already has the one, I feel like you're right that it will change the conversation. But when I think legacy changer, there's one easy answer on that, and it's Harden, right? Like, I'm the one that constantly has stole it from Sarah Spain, says, James Harden forgets how to basketball. In big games, James Harden just doesn't come up big. But I have to look around at some point and say, okay, what changes that? Harden going on a long, incredible run. Harden doesn't even have to win a championship, I think. Harden just has to be the reason that a game 7 goes Cleveland's way. Harden has to be the force that drives them to greatness through a game 7. I think Harden has the opportunity to truly change his legacy simply by, if he wins a championship, then all of a sudden we have to completely change the conversation on Harden, Caroline. But even if he doesn't win a championship, I think if he comes up huge in big game 7 type moments, if he seizes the moment, maybe that will at least put a little bit of a pause on the way that we talk about Harden currently.
Great call out by you, because I started my whole point about Jokic saying winning a championship changes your legacy. And I think we all are so gluttonous for multiple championships. Same thing with Giannis. Yeah, you won one. That's great and all, but when's your second one coming? Same thing with Jokic. But for Harden, I mean, we were having the conversation when he was traded from LA to Cleveland. We were having the conversation at the Super Bowl of where right now, before winning a ring, does James Harden rank in some of the greatest players of all time? And we were talking about like top 20, top 30 conversation without a ring. And a lot of that conversation started with, well, since he doesn't have a championship, he automatically falls outside of a certain stratosphere of all of these players that have won at least one, if not multiple. You'd be naive to think that a legacy or, your memory stays forever if you don't win one. It changes things. Ask Dan Marino, ask Charles Barkley. Yes, some of the greatest of all time, but what do we always say about them? The greatest to never win one. When that's your legacy, man, that has absolutely positively got to sting. And I think James Harden has more basketball behind him than he has in front of him. And I definitely wouldn't say that this chance is his best chance to win a championship. It's not like, oh, he has to win one now or he never will. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But a winning one does absolutely put any player, specifically James Harden, just into a different conversation, just into rarefied air. When if you don't have one, the conversation really has to be different. And the thing with James Harden is not just has he not won one, he's only been to one NBA Finals. And it's been almost a decade and a half. The last time that James Harden was in the NBA Finals, I was a freshman in high school. It's been a minute for a player who is a certified superstar in this league. So if they do, let's just say in a world where the Cavs do get to the NBA Finals, James Harden is going to have to play a pretty massive part in that. So to your point, not only does that just change the legacy of he gets to another NBA Finals, he's contending for a championship, possibly even winning a championship, but he's a key cog in doing so. And that also, I think, creates a different conversation. Sure, you have a ring, but how big of a part did you play in it? If the Cavs win a championship, I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will, but let's live in a world where they do. If they do win a championship, James Harden will have to play a massive role.
Yeah, no doubt. Now let's talk about which teams are under the most pressure this postseason. Then, so which franchise, when we say pressure, are you looking at for under the most going into the playoffs?
I think it's Minnesota. You go to back Western Conference Finals. You have a superstar right there in his prime. And I don't think anyone's really talking about Minnesota, about being able to make some big time waves in the postseason this year. So, can you go to back Western Conference Finals and then in year 3, you get bounced in the first round of the postseason? I don't know if that's going to warrant big time changes. There were reports that Minnesota was willing to kind of sell the farm independent of Ant in order to trade for Giannis. So it's not like the Minnesota Timberwolves are scared to make any sort of moves. And if you get bounced in the first round of the postseason, maybe that does warrant moves. Maybe we do see massive change in Minnesota this offseason if the Timberwolves fall short of another Western Conference Finals, or at least don't even win a playoff series. So for me, Fitzy, I think it's Minnesota.
Yeah, well, and it'll be interesting to see because we have this scale where everybody loves a superstar and everybody loves the team with that superstar until suddenly it feels like the team's not doing enough around the superstar. And then it immediately becomes, when are they going to trade? Can they put enough around? Like, I'll be interested to see when we have the Giannis tipping point of Ant. When are we going to sit there and say, oh, Minnesota's not doing enough around Ant? Like, it's inevitable. It's what happens anytime these guys don't win a championship. I'm with you. I think there's pressure there, but the most pressure to me goes squarely to the Knicks. We've talked so much about this, and Tibbs being fired because they made it clear that they think that the only expectation is the NBA Finals, followed by, the fact that James Dolan sort of doubled down on it and said, hey, clearly this is where we belong. This is where we think we're going to be now. Boston being better than everyone expected sort of makes that road a little bit more difficult. But that's not anything Knicks fans want to hear. Knicks fans right now feel like, hey, this is our moment, our time, our teams come together. We talked to Alan Hahn a couple of days ago on the show, and he talked about how Cat's feeling better than ever and happier than ever. And you can see sort of the changes that are happening. It's taken a minute to gel, but can they do something in the playoffs? Well, they have to. When you fire everybody because the result wasn't good enough, you better achieve more the following year. It's that simple to me. So I think there's a ton of pressure on the Knicks because A, they're the Knicks, but B, they fired everybody last year because they made it very plain to everybody that, hey, finals or bust. So that rule hasn't changed. What about that's team? What about player? What player has to perform at a high level or it'll be viewed as a massive consequence, a major failure, huge change coming?
A major failure, this wouldn't be fair, but I think one team that can live and die by the performance of one player, that's Karl Anthony Towns. Like, if Cat can play elite level basketball, referencing the team that you just brought up, the Knicks, with massive, massive pressure on them, especially, after following last season, you fire your head coach, you bring in a new head coach, and you're not much better. I think the Knicks have immense pressure. I think the Knicks can live and die by Cat. You know what you're going to get from your captain and Jalen Brunson. And with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, that's one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 duos in the NBA postseason over the last couple of years. So we've seen it. We know what this duo, what this team can be when Karl Anthony Towns is playing at his ceiling, is playing at an elite level. This Knicks team, they can get to an NBA Finals if both Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns are playing close to their ceilings. But we also know how brutal this team can look and how they can lose to really anybody in the postseason if Karl Anthony Towns doesn't look even, get a fingernail scratch close to his ceiling. We've seen how discombobulated and disorganized this team can look when Cat isn't a big part of it. So I think Karl Anthony Towns, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I think it could be as simple as Cat plays at an incredibly high level. The Knicks are a dangerous team that could find themselves coming out of the East. And if he doesn't, it could be a first-round exit.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think your answer is the right answer, too, for massive consequence. Because if Cat absolutely implodes, then the Knicks are going to implode and everything's going to change. So that's massive consequence. I don't think that there's the same level of consequence, but there is consequence to whatever happens to KD. And I understanding that KD's legacy is already cemented. So I'm not really talking about the KD of the past or whether, where KD is on the Mount Rushmore for different people. It's not about that. It's about how we view KD moving forward. If the Rockets go out and they're just easily eliminated by the Lakers, I think it changes a lot of the tone of the way that we're going to talk about KD moving forward. Acknowledging whatever you think. Again, I'm not an asterisk on championship sort of person. I don't live that way. He's obviously, I look at everything that he did with Golden State with a ton of respect. Not everybody does. I think there's a lot of people that sit around and wait for the opportunity to doubt KD. But there's also realistic doubt to how much he can lift by himself if a single-handed LeBron with the Lakers is able to beat a single-handed KD with the Rockets. I think that's going to force a bit of a change in how we see KD moving forward and whether or not we still see KD as one of those guys or KD as somebody that has been one of those guys and now is just one of the guys. It's a small difference, but it's a big difference in how we think of him. So for me, KD going out and losing this opening series to LeBron, given how much the Lakers are also going through, I don't think that there's massive consequence to it, but there is consequence to our tone and how we talk about KD moving forward. Plenty more NBA to come up as we've got lots of playoffs to break down. But coming up next, there was big news yesterday about the 65-game rule that may have saved it. We'll break it down for you next.
See the snap.
Jerome the throw, and that's caught. Street goes up and gets it, and it'll be 1st and goal for New Mexico.
Street's having a day.
1st and goal. Johnson on the keeper, and he'll throw it up, and Jefferson's got it. Touchdown, New Mexico. How do you like that?
Cade Klubnik, like, you can see something. I just feel like he does enough where it's like he can move around okay. I like the accuracy. I don't think he's like a special decision maker, but I don't think he's like a complete moron either, and he'll push it a little bit. Like, he just, if I'm trying to find a guy who can, like, we just want a capable backup in the 5th or 6th round, he's probably the only guy left that I like in that mold.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was, all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
He's also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown, flea flicker, back to Myler, under pressure. Myler throws it late, Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield, down the far boards. Brown for the end zone, waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The NBA and NBA-PA have ruled in favor of Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham on their extraordinary circumstances challenge to the 65-game rule, making them both eligible for 2025-26 honors, including MVP and All-NBA. That per Shams. Caroline, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of discourse about 65 games, and this year we saw it happening in front of our very eyes. We were worried that we would end up with the Shedeur Sanders Pro Bowl situation where the all-pro teams were a bunch of people that everybody was saying, But this is at least the NBA stepping in and doing the right thing on a couple of these exemptions here. That being said, not everything happened the right way for some people. The ant appeal also for 65 games was denied. So they didn't universally give everybody. They seem to still have a line in the sand. Did this 65-game ruling make the rule stronger or weaker to you?
In my mind, stronger, because I hated it. I absolutely hated the rule because I didn't think it really accomplished anything. Because on one hand, I think you're kind of changing the trajectory, or you're changing the narrative of the season. If the All-NBA team MVP is somebody who is like 4th, 5th in line, because the top 3, the top 4, contenders for MVP or All-NBA, God forbid they rolled an ankle in January, now all of a sudden they're not eligible. It's like, okay, well then you just have a bunch of guys that weren't necessarily worthy of all NBA. And I thought, okay, well, if you start to make concessions and if you start to say, okay, well, this guy played 63 games, so it's fine. I thought that they were kind of opening Pandora's box a little bit. I do think sometimes rules are better at just black and white and not opening up any sort of room for gray. But I like this, because I think room for gray is absolutely positively necessary. Because Cade Cunningham puncturing his lung in April or late March, whenever it was, after he had a legitimate MVP caliber season, that's just incredibly unfortunate. And I don't think that the 65-game rule, keeping Cade Cunningham ineligible for all NBA and MVP contention, it's just not good for the sport. That's counterproductive to the rule. Same thing with Luka. His daughter was born overseas. God forbid a dad want to go see his newborn daughter. So I think those are all instances where the NBA and the independent arbitration can have some grace and some understanding and say, okay, well, you played 63 games, you were out a couple of games to go see your family. That's okay, that's fine. I also think it makes it even stronger that Ant did not get this exception, because there was plenty of speculation, myself included, an eyebrow a little bit raised, that Ant was sitting out some more games just purely for load management, far more than it was legitimate injury or legitimate reason outside of that. So I think that not just the exemptions for the very fair and understandable exemptions for Luka and Cade Cunningham, but also not an exception for Ant. Look, I love Ant, but he didn't deserve the exemption. So in my eyes, I think it's significantly stronger. I previously despised the rule. I didn't think it accomplished anything. Now my mind is far more open.
Yeah, this to me is such and my first guttural reaction was, all right, this is going to be the end of 65 games. They're leaving the door open. And I'll credit Doug Branson, that works behind the scenes on the show, for really opening my eyes to a second way to look at this. And it's really transformational for me. I think this makes the rule stronger because the league is showing you they're willing to put context around it. The league is showing the NBPA that they're willing to put context around it, around provable, discernible things, right? Like part of the reason Anthony Edwards, we talk about, his appeal was denied. Well, he missed a bunch of games for right knee soreness and pain, right? And an illness. That's just tougher to prove. It's tougher to look at it and say, okay, I understand exactly why you missed those games. As opposed to a collapsed lung, that's the equivalent of like when we were in school and you had to have a doctor's note. Pretty easy to figure out what the doctor's note is on a collapsed lung. It's pretty easy to figure out why Luka's missing games if he's having to go overseas for the birth of a child. Like these are all things that become factors. And I want the league to provide context. I want the league to always live in the gray. We as a society live too much in black and white. I want to see more nuance to every single conversation. It's why I support something Alan Hahn said on air a month ago that, why not let the voters make these decisions? Why not let the voters have guidelines of what we're expecting, but still allow voters to give context? I like this even more where the league is coming in and saying, hey guys, don't freak out. We've got your back. We're going to work together on this. The spirit of the law is something that Adam Silver has made clear he's wanting to defend. He believes in 65 games. I don't think that's going anywhere. Now what they're showing all of us in media and what they're showing all of the players that may not love the rule is we're willing to be grown-ups, sit at it, and actually look at this entire process and make sure what we're doing is right, not just for the spirit of the rule, but for the actual execution of all of it. Nuances is lost so often in sports. I love the fact that it exists here. So, that being said, this creates a great opportunity because now we can look at the MVP conversation differently, right? Like we know Cade's back in that conversation. We know Luka's back in that conversation. But also, I keep looking at the fact that Luka has a shot at the NBA awards, but nowhere near a favorite. And then I think about who are the favorites right now. Wemby, SGA. We talked about Jokic. You look up and down the list, even though Luka now is re-eligible for the MVP and has had an absolutely incredible season, he's nowhere near the MVP this year, which has me wondering, Caroline, like, is there really going to be a path for Luka Doncic to get an MVP while he's with the Lakers?
When the Lakers get better. I mean, the guys that you just said who have better betting odds than Luka Doncic, SGA. Well, looking at the standings here, looks like OKC is the best team in the West. Breaking news. San Antonio, second best team in the West. Another player who has some of the best MVP odds is Jokic. Well, it looks like Denver, third best team in the West. We all view those three teams, not just the hierarchy in the West, but the hierarchy really for the most part in the NBA. I see you, Boston Celtics, and acknowledge your presence. But I think Luka's path to winning an MVP, like he doesn't need to do more individually because Luka has put up some absolutely gaudy numbers. I would say the one maybe better thing that he could do individually is defend. The one thing that the Lakers could do better as a team is defend. Maybe give him a stronger case and the Lakers, a more competitive edge. But if the Lakers are better, then Luka would be in MVP contention. When the Lakers get better, when the Lakers start to be in that top tier in the West, one of the best, better teams in the West, then Luka will be in MVP contention. I just think when you're looking not just at the West, but at the league in its entirety, this year, we've had so many MVP caliber performances. All those players I just listed, plus Jaylen Brown, plus Cade Cunningham. Like, we've had so many elite star performances this season. When it comes down to it, when you're splitting individual performance hairs, you kind of have to look at team performance. And compared to the rest of the West, the Lakers they're not up there. So that's Luka's path to an MVP. Win more games.
Yeah, and that's why you're right. And that's why I don't love Luka's path to an MVP. Like, you're right that the path for Luka to win an MVP is for the Lakers to win the West. I keep looking at this OKC juggernaut that has been built, this OKC dynasty that and again, a reminder for anyone that wasn't paying attention the other night, the elimination of the Clippers means that the Clippers' first-round draft pick now belongs to OKC this year. OKC could still win the lottery. OKC, the best team in the NBA, could literally go out and win the best player in this year's draft, right? Like, that is a very real scenario that stands out there. OKC has a shot at the first overall pick in the draft. The Lakers do not. The Lakers don't have the draft equity that I can find to build and develop the right way. So they're going to be picking whatever this year in the 20s. Then they're going to turn around and they're going to pick next year, probably late, and every year they're going to pick late. So then the question is, how do you get to the point where you're actually surrounding Luka with what he needs to win a bunch of games? And then how do you get better than OKC? How do you get better than San Antonio with Wemby? And how do you get better than the Nuggets, who were just blatantly disrespecting? And to your point, how do we get better than, if we're looking at the league as a whole, Cade Cunningham is about to get a ton of momentum if this Detroit thing is sustainable. Not to mention, my God, a full season of Tatum with the Celtics, as good as they look. Like, it's easy to find 5 or 6 teams in the NBA that are just going to be better than the Lakers will be for the next 5 or 6 years. That's pretty easy to find. And once I apply your math that I think is right, you got to win more games if you want Luka to be an MVP. That only creates more roadblocks. I don't see a path in the next few years that's going to make the Lakers the best team in the league, which means there's a very real path that clearly one of the best players of his generation in Luka Doncic could end up not getting anywhere near an MVP because the Lakers can't put the right things around him. It's wild, and it's a reminder to take all of this, Caroline, all the way back to context that we talked about the NBA having with 65 games. It's why when we sit here and talk about individual achievement, we need to assign more context to that conversation constantly, because we're in this era, much like we were in Be the Old Guy in the 90s, where Patrick Ewing and Charles Barkley and guys like that didn't get rings because of Michael Jordan. We're in an era where individual greatness is not going to get the same level of accomplishment that we're used to because there are so many individually great basketball players in the NBA right now.
1,000%. And that's kind of what the NBA has been for a while now. It's an individual-driven league, but specifically this season. And I do wonder what the 65-game rule can do for Luka, or really any other of those players. Because a 65-game rule could either work to Luka's advantage or his detriment. This year, he got the exemption. You have a child overseas, you miss a couple of games for that. That's, I think, fair and easy for anybody with just a shred of human grace to give Luka that exemption. But maybe there are years where Luka has MVP caliber performances and he doesn't reach that threshold. Which then, that uphill climb to winning an MVP, winning the West, winning a championship, feels that much more daunting. It also works the other way, though. Not just for Luka, but any other player in the NBA. Let's just say there's a world where Wemby and Jokic and SGA and Jason Tatum, when healthy, Jaylen Brown, list goes on and on and on of all of these players that have had MVP-like seasons. Maybe they don't reach that 65-game threshold. Maybe an MVP falls in Luka's lap, which I don't think I would look with any sort of asterisk. I think that's just the new NBA with this new rule that we're kind of living in.
Yeah, maybe Luka just starts trotting ball out there to make sure that anybody that's at 64 games gets knocked over. All right, there we go. That's the end of the shade that I'll throw. We have plenty of fun to come in the NBA.
Just what I liked
obviously,
the rule.
But yeah, I know. But coming up next, we're going to play quarterback matchmaker with some of the best draft prospects to the right spots.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concerned, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and your forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CeCe Mauanoa that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now if you have CeCe Mauanoa on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you gonna just kick right to him? Look at that, who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's gonna try to go low on him.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Our good friends, Nate Tice and Charles McDonald from Football 301 have ranked Garrett Nussmeier ahead of Ty Simpson on their big boards heading into next week's NFL draft. We'll be covering every ounce of the draft for you here at Yahoo Sports. We'll have live streams coming both Thursday and Friday you don't want to miss. But Caroline, it's interesting because, look, let's just start here at the very basics. Whether we're talking about Nate and Charles or whether we're talking about Dan Orlovsky, like just because somebody prefers one type of quarterback over the other doesn't mean that it's great disrespect to another. Like, everybody calm down about quarterbacks. But certainly this one controversial because we're seeing some love for Nussmeier. What do you make of this take that Nussmeier greater than little sign Ty Simpson?
Well, as a very proud LSU alum, I will always buy into and believe any sort of take that says that anything related to LSU is better than anything related to Alabama. I believe that into my core. Thank you very much. But I will swiftly take my purple and gold tinted glasses off. I think this is a fascinating take because my biggest concern, or I guess my biggest critique of Ty Simpson, he's not very experienced. He's completed, just over 500 passes at the college level, only has 1 year as a starter, and only had 3 years in college. When you're looking at this new era of college sports where you have COVID years, you have the transfer portal, you have guys that are staying in college for 5 or 6 years, you have guys that are coming out at 23, 24 years old with 2 to 3 years of starting experience under their belts. Ty Simpson doesn't have that. There's going to be a massive learning curve that Ty Simpson has to experience that maybe a Garrett Nussmeier or a Fernando Mendoza has already gone through at the college level. And Ty Simpson's learning curve will be compounded with the fact that it's happening at the NFL level. Garrett Nussmeier has that experience. Not only was he a starter for 2 years, but he also sat the bench for several years at LSU. He worked with the coaching staff, learned by osmosis. I mean, he sat behind a Heisman Trophy winner and first-round drafted quarterback in Jaden Daniels for 2 years. One thing I've always been consistent with and always will be consistent with, I am always pro sitting the quarterback and letting them learn. That's normally applied to the NFL, but I think it applies in college as well. The Garrett Nussmeier was so much more of a polished prospect when he took over the starting job because he had that time to learn and mature and really get a good grasp on the offense. Ty Simpson doesn't have that. Garrett Nussmeier does. But Garrett Nussmeier had a rough year last year. And I think you can point to the injury. He's come out and been very open about how he had an injury that was really plaguing him all season long, and that led to a lot of injuries. Or it led to a lot of mistakes, that led to a lot of lapses, that led to his game decreasing and looking worse in 2025 than it did in 2024. But that still is kind of who Garrett Nussmeier is. He always has been a gunslinger. He is more than happy to fit YOLO balls in teeny tiny windows. He is more than happy to let it rip. And when it works, oh my gosh, it's fun to watch. But when it doesn't, you leave yourself scratching your head like, what in the world are you thinking? Ty Simpson doesn't have that same kind of gunslinger mentality. So I think it really just kind of depends on what's your style of quarterback. I think they have the same uncoachable traits. They're both great leaders. They're both, sons of players and coaches. They're both, not going to get into any trouble off the field. They're both just good quality guys that are willing to do anything for the team. Both of them check those boxes. But when it comes down to it, Garrett Nussmeier has the experience, but also Garrett Nussmeier has more bad tape than Ty Simpson does.
Yeah, but that's because Ty doesn't have tape. I'm going to give I know stats get overwhelming, but I'm going to give everybody some stats here real quick. This is important. 334 completions out of 523 attempts for 3,948 yards. That's Ty Simpson's entire career. 334 of 523 for 3,948. Okay. When I say that, and we've got slightly different number there, but when I say that here, I just want to remind everybody that 2 seasons ago, just in that season for LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, 337 of 525 for 4,052 yards. In the 2024 season, Garrett Nussmeier was a little bit better than Ty Simpson's entire career. So I get it that once you put bad on tape, people look at bad. And then we have to turn around and say, well, it's injuries or it's system or it's the coaching or it's the players around and we have to do all of that. But the fact is, there just hasn't been enough tape of Ty Simpson to know if he's got that bad in him. This is one of those moments where we talked the other day about whether or not the playoffs should factor into Rookie of the Year voting for the NBA, right? And it's like, well, this guy has more games. You can't hold that against him. Ty Simpson has so little time on task for tape. It might turn out that he's great, but part of the reason people get nervous about drafting somebody with that little time on task is you haven't seen that much. It's much easier to come out and have one great season. That makes everybody nervous. And yeah, sometimes that works. Sometimes you can have one great season that catapults you to suddenly be seen in a different light, Joe Burrow. We understand that. But the fact is, Ty Simpson has so little time on task, it makes me nervous. Even if you love the tape, you have to acknowledge the fact that he's played so little compared to everybody else. God only knows. So let's play matchmaker here. We'll go through some of these quarterbacks. We'll figure out what the right marriage is. Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson to the Rams makes a ton of sense, Caroline, because no time on tape. Let him simmer. Let him go somewhere where he doesn't have to play. He can just learn to be a pro. He learns to be a pro from McVay. He gets to watch Stafford. They get to develop him and see what they truly have, time on task. They get all of that opportunity to get the best out of Ty Simpson. I like the Rams. Where do you like Ty Simpson?
I don't dislike that at all. But I like Ty Simpson to Pittsburgh. I like that match with him and with Mike McCarthy. One thing where I think Ty Simpson struggled a little bit and where I think he was left vulnerable at Alabama was in Ryan Grubb's offense. They want to spread it out. They want to let it loose, but they didn't have much of a run game. And I don't know if that's a Ryan Grubb scheme thing or if that's just a personnel thing at Alabama, but Alabama just did not have the run game to support a young quarterback. But Mike McCarthy's system relies a lot on the running back. They want to run the ball a lot. They want to utilize play action. Not going to ask the quarterback to do too much. You want to let it rip, you absolutely can. But there's also a check down slant right there for you. And a big part of Mike McCarthy's wide receiver scheme is yards after catch. That I think is very beneficial for a young quarterback to not have to put everything in his plate. So I like that fit with Mike McCarthy's system, an offensive-minded head coach. And also, I know Aaron Rodgers has not put pen to paper in Pittsburgh, but can we all just as friends here acknowledge Aaron Rodgers more than likely will be the quarterback in Pittsburgh in 2026? Well, that allows Ty Simpson to sit and learn from Aaron Rodgers, somebody who also sat and learned in the beginning of his career. And let's just say Aaron Rodgers has 1 year left. I think that's fair to say. Well, then Ty Simpson can sit on the bench and learn for an entire year, and they don't have to rush him along. So I love that fit in Pittsburgh. I also think it's a personality fit too, kind of chip on your shoulder, blue collar mentality.
I love that. Those are great calls. Either of these are great homes for Ty Simpson. What about Garrett Nussmeier? We just talked about him. I'll give you kind of an off the rails take for here. I love Garrett Nussmeier to the Cardinals. And I love him to the Cardinals because nobody will care, right? Like at the end of and when I say that, for me, taking him to Arizona is a little bit like, all right, nobody's going to pay attention. He can go out. He can develop on his own time. They're not going to have a lot of pressure. Nobody's expecting anything there. He's got a couple of vets. Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew, I think, are the two quarterbacks in the room. They're going to draft somebody. Why not draft a developmental guy? Like in third round, Garrett Nussmeier, Cardinals, what do you think?
I don't want him to go there.
Okay.
It's just such a miserable franchise. But I do love the idea of Garrett Nussmeier throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, gunslinger kind of quarterback with a receiver that can catch literally anything that's thrown to him in the same zip code. That would be very fun. But I will take the team that you just mentioned. I'm going to say Garrett Nussmeier to the Rams. I love that. A kind of guy that in Garrett Nussmeier that could maybe use a little bit of polishing around the edges, having that kind of I'll do whatever it takes to win for the team kind of mentality with a heck of an arm, but with an offensive minded head coach and Sean McVay that can really kind of hone in that skill. Not going to take Superman's cape away from him, but just kind of emphasize it and polish it and make sure it's more of a positive end of the gunslinger versus the negative end of the gunslinger. And I think the Rams, let me just say for the record, I think the Rams are the perfect destination for any young quarterback. You have the brightest offensive mind in the game of football. You've got veterans scattered around you. You can learn from Matthew Stafford, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and the reigning MVP. I think that's the perfect location for any young quarterback, but I think especially a young quarterback that, like Garrett Nussmeier, that has all of the traits either up here in his brain, here in his heart, or in his arm and in his legs, but he just needs a little bit of time on task. I think that would be a great location for anyone, specifically Garrett Nussmeier.
How about Drew Allar? I remember about a year ago when everybody thought Drew Allar was going to be a hot draft pick. Turns out not. What about Drew Allar to the Colts? All right, take a flyer, see what develops. You got Daniel Jones. You're going to be under contract. You got Daniel Jones for a while. You just sit Drew Allar. If the DJ thing doesn't work out, then maybe you see if Drew Allar's got anything. If the DJ thing does work out, maybe you draft your backup quarterback. Like mid-third day draft pick Drew Allar, to me, Colts I like.
I see it. I mean, because it could be a quarterback needy team, 100%. I don't love the weapons around the quarterback, though, especially for a young quarterback. You have Jonathan Taylor, and an elite running back, I think, is going to be a young quarterback's best friend. But they just moved on from Michael Pittman, friend of the show. And I don't know if I believe in Alec Pierce as a certified number one wide receiver, especially good. That's going to be a go-to guy for a young quarterback. But I don't know if I can give you a better team fits. I think a good fit for Drew Allar could be just anyone who can afford to take a flyer on a young quarterback in the 4th or 5th round, which is kind of where Drew Allar is projected. Like maybe Miami. They have a short-term commitment to Malik Willis. They're overturning this roster. I'm sure they're going to be looking for a quarterback, if not this year, in the near future. I could see Miami with, 3 third-round picks, taking a flyer on a guy like Drew Allar.
I love that. We'll get one more in real quick. Diego Pavia, we've talked a little bit about Diego Pavia. I've got the perfect spot for him. All right, I've figured it out. I've thought a lot about the perfect spot for Diego Pavia. The Iowa Barnstormers. I'm in Jacksonville calling an indoor football league game tonight. I'm putting Diego Pavia on the Iowa Barnstormers, a legendary indoor football franchise. We can just put Diego in there. Quarterbacks in the indoor game got to do a lot. They got to run. They got to throw. They get the ball in their hands a lot. A little swaggy opportunity. Diego, a better chance of playing a different type of football than NFL football to me.
I would love Diego Pavia to the IFL. I would love that so much, and I would love to cover Diego Pavia in the IFL. I just don't think he has the size to be an NFL quarterback, but if it's not in the NFL and if it's not in the IFL, I just want to see Diego Pavia on the internet. Get him in front of a microphone on a podcast. Give him a YouTube page. I'm here for that.
Every ounce of this sounds absolutely perfect for Diego. At the end of the day, I just want to remind everybody this whole conversation only happens because we know the most important quarterback matchup that's happening. That's Fernando Mendoza to my beloved Raiders, in case I haven't mentioned it. By the way, again, Yahoo Sports will have you covered throughout all of the NFL draft. We'll keep you updated next week for how you can watch us throughout the course of the entire first and second day. A lot of expertise going to come at you. So we'll keep the draft breakdowns coming between now and Thursday. It's less than a week away. That feels absolutely crazy. The NFL season right around the corner. Coming up next, we're going to talk to friend of the show. She mentioned it earlier. Michael Pittman Jr. going to join us. We'll figure out, how things are going in Pittsburgh and most importantly, how things are going on his farm. Coming next.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
If all of this can be electronically called in split seconds, why even have a human back there?
I don't think we get to a point where no humans are officiating the game out there at all, because someone has to give the immediate signal right away so everybody can see it. Now, technology is an amazing thing. Things continue to improve day in and day out and get better and faster and quicker. So never say never, but it's going to be a while before I think that happens.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
You just finished a massive tour visiting 20 different countries across Africa. What inspired you to do it?
As a kid, I always loved to travel, and as a kid, I wasn't able to travel. And I was always just deeply involved in culture. I kind of realized that back in history class. I was just like, what? Huh? You know what? Huh? And plus, I'm from Africa. I got to go back. That's the motherland.
Michael Pittman Jr. has a farm with chickens, cows, horses, pigs, turkeys, and even a peacock named Perry. He's looking for someone to help maintain his farm now that he's in Pittsburgh. I love every ounce of this. Michael Pittman Jr., friend of the show, joining us now on behalf of Toyota's NFL Draft, Flag Football, Training Camp. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Why Perry that's the first thing I thought. Why Perry is the name of the peacock?
It's just the, alliteration of it, but I'm very unique with names. And so we have a cat named Cat. We have a bull calf named Boy. And we're just creative, you got to name things, so got to get creative with it.
It makes sense. I couldn't come up with a more perfect name for a peacock other than Perry. So well done by you.
Thank you.
So we just showed a picture of you in an Indianapolis Colts uniform. You were just recently traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Congratulations. But when you were traded, your wife tweeted you tweeted that your wife had a dream that you were wearing a Steelers jersey. So I'm going to tap into your wife's special juju, the fact that she can see into the future, her crystal ball. What else can she tell us? How many Steelers wins this season? How many Steelers playoff wins this season?
Right. Yeah. That was kind of crazy. So that all came out before, or she had told me that before, all the trade stuff have really, really come to be a reality. And I thought, hey, there's even a possibility of me getting traded. And she had just kind of told me that she had a dream about she was at a photo shoot, and I was in a Steelers jersey. There was media everywhere, and this and that. And then I just kind of brushed it off. I'm all right, that's cool. You had a dream. And then fast forward, obviously, and then it became a real thing. So it was super crazy. And we need her to dream about the Super Bowl victory this year. So I need her to have that dream next, right?
I mean, we got to ask you. She had a dream where, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. Like, what can she see into the Aaron Rodgers crystal ball?
Yeah, I mean, nobody really knows what Aaron right now, but like we're fortunate that we have two other guys that have been there, and so I think Aaron's close to making a decision. But then again, like I don't know, I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks, so we're kind of all waiting to figure out, like with the rest of you. People think that we know. We know nothing. So. But whatever happens, and we'll roll with the guys we got.
So walk me through what that's like, your mentality and your process. Look, I know we have plenty of time before the start of the season, but it's April 17th. You and your position, your chemistry, your relationship with the quarterback position is paramount. So what's that like for you, having a question mark as to who that guy will be week 1?
Yeah, I've been fortunate that I've been no stranger to quarterback turnover. So, but this is the NFL and this is the highest level. So whoever is the guy is going to be a very talented quarterback. And the thing about Mike is he's very creative, and he's going to figure out ways to pass the ball. I know that he wants to pass the ball, and the system that he has is to make the quarterback successful, and we'll do that no matter who it is.
It's interesting because I almost forget that Tomlin's not the head coach there. We're so used to Mike Tomlin being the head coach of the Steelers, right? So what's that moment like when you're coming into an organization and it's such a reset for the team and the entire brand and everybody in the building?
Yeah, it's definitely harder for the guys who have been there. For me, it almost makes it easier because now we're all learning together. So I am the new guy, but we're all new to the staff, right? So everybody is learning brand new offense, and it puts us all in the same boat, and I feel like I have other guys who were dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with, trying to learn the offense and just kind of work through it with them as well. So.
You mentioned you're the new guy. For the first time in your career, you spent the last 6 seasons in Indianapolis. And like you mentioned, you're no stranger to quarterback turnover or coaching turnover, but now you're wearing a new uniform for the first time in your career. What has that adjustment period been like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely different because when the news first broke, it almost didn't feel real. And obviously being in Indy for 6 years, you grow to know the people, the community around here, and just Indy is such a great place. There's so many great people, and that's the hardest thing about being traded is having to leave those people behind, because football is football. As long as I have a chance to play football still, everything is going to be fine. And I know that Pittsburgh is a really great city. The fans are super passionate. The players there have been great. And I actually went in there nervous on day one, and then on the first day, I had the best day ever. The guys were super awesome. The coaches are great, strength staff, training room, and I just really got to meet everyone, and all that anxiety I had about making the jump just faded away. So I'm super happy with how it turned out and getting settled in Pittsburgh. And obviously, as we keep going, it'll even get a little more comfortable, and it'll be fun.
Is there somebody in the North that you're like, oh man, I can't wait to take this guy on. I can't wait to go head to head with this person?
No, I don't really try to make too big a deal of matchups. I just focus on each play and just doing whatever I have to do on that play. And then, you look up after 60 minutes and it usually turns out good. So.
And a lot of great defensive players in the AFC North. I at least view, doing what we do and watching from home, I feel like the AFC North has such a strong identity. It's playing football in the snow and it's strong-nosed defense. They want to run the football. What have you heard from some AFC North vets about what those rivalries are like and what that style of play is like?
Oh yeah, I mean, like everybody knows about the AFC North. You know that it's going to be cold, it's going to be tough, and the weather is going to be bad. And that's really the essence of football. Like when you think about football, you think about smash mouth football. I think that's AFC North is probably the most physical division.
So what's the moment like for you when you realize, because you have a family, you have kids, you have roots in Indianapolis, and you realize your job is taking you to someplace completely different. How do you make that adjustment, not just for you, but also for your family that's got to figure out how to live in a new spot?
Yeah, I'm fortunate that my kids are still young, so it's not too hard for them to adjust, right? And it's all about just finding a good school and a good place to live, which there's a lot of those in Pittsburgh. So we're not too worried about it. We've toured some schools, we've seen some homes, and excited to get there and be there full time.
With the contract extension that came along with the trade acquisition, do you feel any pressure for that? Everybody sees the money. Is there a pressure to live up to any of that?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say to live up to that. I mean, I think every NFL player wants to compete at the highest level and wants to go out and win games. And for me, it's just all about going out there and doing whatever I can do to help this team. And my hope is that's catching passes and touchdowns, right? But whatever the team has called me to do is all go out there and do that and do it with pride. And at the end of the day, look up and just hope it brought the team value. So excited to be able to be in this offense and see what we can do.
Just listening to you talk about this change, this transition, your role, just feel this level of comfort and confidence in what you do. I feel like that comes with time in the league, being a veteran in this league. If you go back to, your draft year, we're just, a week away from the draft. How much have you changed as a person and as a player, and how much has the game changed for a wide receiver?
Absolutely. I mean, you see the game kind of evolving from in the past, it was everything was about the big physical receiver, and now you kind of see it transitioning to speed and quickness, and you're seeing a lot of high-end receivers that are shorter, if that makes sense, because it's so speed focused and stuff like that. So being able to find a good combination between both, being fast and being big, that's where, you got to fit in. And then just for me personally, honestly, just being a smarter player in terms of reading coverage, knowing assignments and blocking schemes, and hey, the defense is going to rotate. That backer's pushed in a little too far. That safety's probably going to come down outside, and then he's going to. So it's just knowing coverage just helps you be a smarter, faster player, and can lead to more targets and more catches and more productivity.
You are. Sorry about that, Michael. You're joining us on behalf of Toyota. You're helping to host the Toyota NFL Draft Flag Football Training Camp. I love flag football. I'm in on all of this. Tell everybody about what you got going on.
Yes, so Toyota is rolling out the NFL Draft red carpet, and we are going to be doing a flag football training camp for girls. And I actually am going to be coaching it, be running receiver, quarterback drills, and it's just a really great thing because Toyota has donated over $3 million to youth sports and been able to reach over 300,000 kids, which is great. And we just want to make sure that these girls are embracing their spotlight and just know that Toyota is doing everything that they can to try to bring this game up and just keep it going. And like, who knows? Like, we might start having a televised girls league and stuff like that. So Toyota's pushing for all of that. So
it's an amazing thing. I continually die on this hill. I think the fastest growing sport in the world is going to become women's flag football. It's got so much backing. It's going to be epic. Really cool that you're doing that. We always appreciate your time, man. Congratulations on the move to Pittsburgh. Can't wait to see you crush it for the Steelers. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Michael.
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
It's great stuff from Michael Pittman. Absolute legendary stuff. Going to have a great year in Pittsburgh. There is no doubt. Speaking of the draft, it is right around the corner. Is it loaded at the wide receiver position? We'll answer that for you next.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
If all of this can be electronically called in split seconds, why even have a human back there?
I don't think we get to a point where no humans are officiating the game out there at all, because someone has to give the immediate signal right away so everybody can see it. Now, technology is an amazing thing. Things continue to improve day in and day out and get better and faster and quicker. So never say never, but it's going to be a while before I think that happens.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
You just finished a massive tour visiting 20 different countries across Africa. What inspired you to do it?
As a kid, I always loved to travel, and as a kid, I wasn't able to travel. And I was always just deeply involved in culture. I kind of realized that back in history class. I was just like, what? Huh? You know what? Huh? And plus, I'm from Africa. I got to go back. That's the motherland.
Carnell Tate at minus 450 feels safe until you remember wide receiver order changes every year. Jordan Tyson at plus 330, Mekhi Lemon at plus 750. These are all conversations about the odds on different guys in the NFL draft on who's going to be the first one. And the funny thing is, Caroline, I say this all the time. Like, I've been lucky. I hosted the first ever digital live stream of the NFL draft at ESPN when, our boss at Yahoo Sports, Ryan Spoon, came to me years ago, and I was brand new at ESPN, and we just finished college football. He said, what do you want to do next? I was like, I want to do a draft show. Like, I love the draft. But what I laugh about sometimes covering the draft is my favorite event in the sports calendar all year long is that almost every year I've covered the draft, I've had to sit there with a group of experts around me and say, this is a loaded wide receiver class. Like every year, this is a loaded wide receiver class. I don't know. Is it like when we look at those names, do we really believe that this wide receiver class is epic franchise chasing, oh my God, guys at the top?
I don't view it that way. Like, I view, what is 2022 draft? Doesn't matter. The draft of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. Like, that was a loaded receiver draft. Maybe not just in sheer volume, but in the fact that there were 3 certified franchise-changing, plug-and-play, day one impact receivers in that draft. And we've seen that come to fruition, at least in Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. Jury's still out on Marvin Harrison Jr. I'll blame the Cardinals before I blame him, but still I rest my case. Those are 3 elite receivers. All of these receivers, at least the receivers that have first-round grades, I think are yeah-but guys. And let's just state for the record here, most players in the NFL draft are yeah-but guys. Look at all this talent that you have, but this. Like, I'll call out Jordan Tyson, who we see on the screen right there. Jordan Tyson has the size of an NFL receiver. He has the athleticism. He has the motor. But Jordan Tyson also has suffered 3 major injuries in his college career. He tore his ACL, which is, guys tear the ACLs all the time. He fractured his collarbone 2 years ago, and he had a lingering hamstring injury last season that kept him often on the field. Now, when you're 21 years old, a hamstring injury isn't as detrimental as when you're 31 years old, but still soft tissue injuries always make me a little bit concerned. So if Jordan Tyson is maybe viewed as just on paper the best receiver in this draft, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of NFL general managers look at his injury history and they say, if we're investing a top 10, top 15 pick on this guy, we need you to be available. We need you to be on the field. What's your best ability? It's your availability. So that's one example of a guy that has maybe some elite traits that maybe could be viewed by many as the best receiver in this draft. But there's the but.
And to that end, I think part of it is that over the last 5 years, particularly, we haven't had to qualify the best of the best. If you go back over the last 5 years, just to give you some of the names selected in the first round of the NFL draft in the last 5 years at the wide receiver position, because we do this to quarterbacks all the time. We're sitting here saying, last year it was shouldn't take Cam because the other quarterbacks this year shouldn't take Fernando. Look at these other, all right, let's do the same thing to the wide receiver position. 2021, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith were your first round, some of your guys. In 2022, you had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave go in the first round. Obviously, guys that have turned out to be stars. 2023, Jackson Smith and Jigba was a first-round draft pick. Think that's worked out. You mentioned Marvin Harris, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze. I'll add Brian Thomas to that draft, who was also in that one. And then even last year, Tet McMillan, Travis Hunter, we'll see if he can stay healthy, but certainly, and then Emeka Buka. Look across the board. In the last 5 years, when you take a wide receiver in the first round, you are taking a star. The last time I feel like we really had questions at wide receiver that maybe weren't quite answered, you'd have to go all the way back to maybe 2019. And there's a reason why that year, Debo, A.J. Brown, they were second-round draft picks. The first round that year was N'Keal Harry and Marquise Brown. That we've seen what that's turned out to be. It's been that long since we've had real questions at who's being selected in the first round. This year, the wide receiver position, Carolina, I think, has guys, but it doesn't have those guys. If you need a wide receiver, there's a lot of talent in this year's draft. If you need a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, if you need an epic day one, this guy is going to be the future of the league superstar, I just don't think he exists as we see it right now in the beginning of this year's draft.
Yeah, look, it's not 100% a hit because I'll bring up the 2022 draft, one draft. Again, years are hard. You had Drake London in that draft, who I think many view as a great young receiver who obviously, there's been a question mark at the quarterback position in Atlanta, but I still think you view Drake London as a building block moving forward for the Falcons. You know who was also drafted in that draft? Treylon Burks. Anybody know where Treylon Burks is these days? Because I don't. I do not know where he is. And I covered him for the first several years of his career. So it's not 100% hit rate. But it has seemed, at least in recent history, those guys who we viewed as potential franchise changers have ended up coming to fruition as potential franchise changers. But I look at, we used Jordan Tyson as one example earlier as a guy who could be that, but has some injury concerns. I look at a guy like Carnell Tate, another guy who a lot of people view as a top 10 talent in this year's draft. Now, look, Carnell Tate has all of the things that you want. He has the heart. He is smart. He has all of those things that you frankly cannot coach in a receiver. But I also have to look at the national championship year, and Carnell Tate was the third best receiver on that team. Now, granted, it was the third best receiver on that team behind Emeka Egbuka, who's one of my favorite rookies in the NFL this past year, and Jeremiah Smith, who will be a top 5, top 10 pick in next year's draft. But Carnell Tate was still the third best receiver on that team. So there's questions about, does he really have those elite traits? Makai Lemon is another one that I think a lot of people view as probably a mid-first round pick this year, a guy that can be a really great kind of player, but is he going to be that elite franchise-changing Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type? I don't think so. So I think that we need to add a little bit of nuance to the discussion of wide receivers. If we have just listed all of these guys who can plug and play right now, maybe they're not elite top-end receivers, but they can help your team and help your offense right away. So when it comes to, team building, roster building, when it comes to paying the right kind of players, I think we have to stop looking at receivers like quarterbacks and start looking at it with a little bit more nuance. Because we just mentioned Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Those are guys that you pay. You pay those guys $40 million a year and you don't look back. Because those are top-end receivers, the best at their position. They can elevate anyone around them. We saw it. Justin Jefferson and Jackson Smith and Jigba made Sam Darnold look like a league MVP. But you don't have to pay every receiver $40 million a year, because not every receiver is $40 million a year. Like with quarterbacks, it's like, look, well, we have to pay him $45 million a year because he's just the next one up. Doesn't necessarily have to be the best quarterback in the league, but he just is your guy, and that's the going rate for a quarterback. You don't have to pay receivers the same way. If a receiver is not a $40 million a year kind of receiver, well, you can find another plug-and-play productive receiver in the NFL draft at a $35 million a year discount.
That's why, to me, the end of the day, wide receiver is becoming the new running back. And look, there are certain running backs that you pay, and it doesn't matter. And you pay them. You pay Derrick Henry, it doesn't matter. You pay Saquon, it doesn't matter. You pay the best of the best, the absolute elite. You pay the top of the line running back. There's no question about it. But the rest of them are sort of wins above replacement conversations. I think that's where we are with the wide receiver position. If you've got a top 10 guy that's clearly, oh my God, clear-cut number one superstar in this league, sure, go ahead and pay him. For everybody else, churn and burn. I genuinely believe we're going to get to the point, much like we do with running backs, where they're drafted with the intent to replace them every 5 years. Well, if you're drafting a number 2 wide receiver, man, you can get a new number 2 wide receiver every 5 years and just keep resetting the thing over and over and over again. The way analytics now sort of drive so much of our concept of who we should and shouldn't pay, I just wonder what the long-term analytics are going to show us about second receivers, third receivers, slot guys, like trying to figure out exactly where the value is for every one of these players. Because certainly if every time, like if you can continuously get somebody in the first or second round that can be a difference maker for you, then the question becomes, all right, other than the elite of the elite, again, I want to be clear. I'm not including Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or guys like that in this conversation, like Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm not including them in these conversations. But JSN, somebody that was literally just drafted a couple of years ago, right? And almost immediately makes this incredible impact to the entire organization. So sure, if you want to swing for the fences at the wide receiver position in the first round, I support that completely. Go out, try and see if you can get your guy and get cost control talent for a few years. But once you start getting into the real look at your roster and you look around and realize that you got a bunch of T. Higgins, I'm not sure that necessarily it's always the best to pay a bunch of T. Higgins. Like I'm not sure in the modern construct where we get more and more wide receivers coming out quickly making an impact, frankly, Caroline, I'm not sure it doesn't make more sense to say, hey, I'll let you walk. You go hit free agency. I hope you get the bag. Somebody will pay you. Not going to be me, because we'll find somebody in the second, third, or fourth round that we're going to be able to develop into that quickly.
And that just is smart roster construction. Unless you have an owner that's willing to pump an infinite amount of money into a roster, you have to make decisions. You have to make decisions about where you spend your money. You have to make your decisions about where you spend your draft capital. If you have guys that are younger and cheaper, can play a similar, if not identical role pretty much right away, which again is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that any of these guys that we view as first round talent can do that. But you draft them in the first round because you have faith that they will. Not just that they can, but that they will. Well, I'll go with the younger and cheaper guy that can play a similar, if not identical role over the older and more expensive guy at that position. Plus, I was doing a bunch of draft research yesterday. And every draft evaluator and draft guru is going to have a different opinion, but for the most part, you see a general consensus for every position. I read one article that had 10 first round grades for receivers. 10 first round grades. So let's just say the average is 7 or 8. If the average is that you're getting 7 or 8 first round blue chip wide receivers in any given draft, well, then it would be fair to say that you have pretty much a constant refreshing of those kinds of players. So if you're looking around the league and you have a guy that's, let's say, like a certified number 2, a good role player, a versatile receiver, he can play the slot, he can run it deep, whatever it might be, and he wants $32 million a year, I'm going to say no thanks, because the supply at that position is just going to be replenished tenfold in the next draft in the next year. Again, like you mentioned, this does not apply to the elite of the elite in any position. I would pay any player at any position that's elite of the elite. Safety, corner, offensive line, running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, surely. But if you don't have a player that's elite of the elite, you don't have to pay them elite money. Paying a player elite money does not make them an elite player.
Yeah, the wide receiver position is changing in front of our very eyes. I think the value of it's going to change drastically over the next several years. And again, a reminder, Yahoo Sports will have all of your draft content covered right here on the Yahoo Sports Network. So be sure to check us out on Thursday and Friday, getting you everything that you need to know as your teams are on the clock. All right, from everything that we just saw in the NFL, let's move over to the WNBA, where yesterday one team did everything wrong. We'll tell you about it next.
See the snap.
Jerome the throw, and that's caught. Demond Street goes up and gets it, and it'll be 1st and goal for New Mexico.
Demond Street's having a day.
1st and goal. Johnson on the keeper, and he'll throw it up, and Jefferson's got it. Touchdown, New Mexico. How do you like that?
Cade Klubnik, like, you can see something. I just feel like he does enough where it's like he can move around okay. I like the accuracy. I don't think he's like a special decision maker, but I don't think he's like a complete moron either, and he'll push it a little bit. Like, if I'm trying to find a guy who can, like, we just want a capable backup in the 5th or 6th round, he's probably the only guy left that I like in that mold.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler. Under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield. Down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
A reporter asked number 1 overall pick Azzi Fudd about a relationship with Wings teammate Paige Bueckers. The team PR staff stepped in, said they will not be commenting on the personal lives of players. It's a clip that has now gone all over the place and has Twitter certainly yelling and screaming. Caroline, do we have an issue with the way that the Wings PR handled it?
I do. I do very much so have an issue with how the Wings PR handled it. Let me just state for the record, I think the question was totally and completely fair and respectful. I do think the manner of questions matters. The words you use, how you say it. The reporter sounded like it was coming from nothing but just genuine curiosity. The reporter is doing their job. Whenever you have 2 consecutive number 1 overall picks who played college basketball together and who are both in a very public relationship with one another, You have to ask that question. So I don't have a problem with the question. But the reason why I have an issue with the PR stepping in the way that they did, not letting Azzi say anything, but the PR person saying, hey, we're not taking personal questions, is it just comes across like you're babying your player. That was not a question that elicited interference from a PR person. There are questions, and we've all heard them before, where a PR person has to step in and take care of the player. Say, hey, like that was off base. We're not addressing that. I do think there are situations where that exists. This isn't one of them. Azzi Fudd is an adult. Azzi Fudd is a professional. Allow her to answer the question like an adult and like a professional. And look, we have been talking about Azzi and Paige potentially playing together for months now. So surely behind the scenes, their PR has been talking about it. That's plenty of time to help Azzi craft an eloquent and respectful response if Azzi didn't want to talk about her personal life. And if she doesn't, that's totally fair. But Azzi can answer that herself. And that is the Wings' PR responsibility, to help her craft a statement to make her feel comfortable answering it in that way. And the other thing I'll say is, when I'm scrolling through Instagram, I'm hard-pressed to not find an ad with those two together. I've seen several ads of them kind of interviewing each other, several things that have been posted on social media, interviews that they've done together. This isn't a very private relationship. They have been in the public eye for a long time. They have talked publicly about their relationship. So either you're having a public relationship or you're not, and you can't have it both ways. I just think the W as a whole and the Dallas Wings would benefit from allowing their players to just be adults and to speak for themselves, because there are plenty of other professional athletes that speak publicly about their personal lives or craft their own statement or their own response to say, hey, I'd rather not talk about my personal life. Either is totally and completely valid. I just didn't think the PR person needed to step in.
Yeah, and so let's be clear about a couple of things here. Number one, Yahoo has a PR person, right? And so sometimes when we do interviews, the PR person will sit in on the interview to make sure that what we're getting asked, it makes sense for what they want for the interview. This is common. I came from a band that had multiple PR people, and every time we did certain interviews, people would sit in and they'd make sure that everything was sort of going on track. And not uncommon for a PR person to step in and say, hey, to some things. This is an uncommon moment for that to happen. So I want to be clear, because I have an understanding of what PR is like. I have an understanding of what press conferences are like. And to your point, Caroline, there's an article that's out there all over the place on Twitter, X right now, from Glamour Magazine a year ago, where they were talking very openly about their relationship. Now, sure, maybe that changes. Maybe Azzi doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Maybe Paige doesn't want to talk about it. That's their question to answer, and it's their right to answer that. But anyone today screaming about the fact that the question was even asked or that they were put in this position, politely stop. Like, just stop screaming about something, because this is the standard across the board. Last time I checked, nobody ever sat down and said, why are we asking Travis Kelce about Taylor Swift? Hell, why are we asking everybody that's ever played for the Kansas City Chiefs about Taylor Swift? It's what happens when you're in a public relationship. When you're famous and you're in a relationship, Justin Herbert is going to be asked about his famous, Josh Allen asked about his famous wife. And we've had Josh Allen on the show before. And the answer sometimes in advance has been like, hey, Josh doesn't want to talk about this one thing with this relationship, doesn't want to talk about his marriage, whatever those things are. Like, there are ways to handle it. But to imply that Azzi or Paige was being asked something out of line is completely asinine, because everybody that's sitting here yelling about what was asked, I question, were you yelling about any of the times that we sat back and talked about Belichick and Jordan? When you are famous and you are in a relationship, that relationship, like it or not, love it or not, fair or not, is going to be part of the conversation. When you happen to be in a relationship, at least as far as we know, at least as far as the last we heard, with somebody that is now a teammate, that is certainly a dynamic. And the question that was asked was, essentially, paraphrasing here, have you talked to other couples in the league about how to navigate it? That speaks to an understanding that this is not just Dallas. This is something that's happened more. We've seen players traded that want to be with their partners in the WNBA, and it's been openly talked about. So to imply that the question was out of line is frankly out of line. To imply that the tone of the question was out of line is frankly asinine. And to handle it the way that the Wings PR team handled it, just yet again, is the W making simple things complicated. And I don't understand it. They needed to be prepared. Azzi needed to be prepared. And if she doesn't want to talk about it, certainly there was a great way for her to say, guys, right now, the story isn't my relationship. If you don't mind, I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk about basketball. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. We're having this conversation in part because the PR person did the one thing a PR person should never do. They took something simple and they turned it into a story that they can no longer control.
All Azzi had to say, if she didn't want to talk about their relationship, and I don't know the status of their relationship, but they did play together in college. And Azzi can say, hey, really just like to keep the conversation focused on the court. Obviously, Paige and I have a long history together playing it at UConn. So really excited to bring that team chemistry back. And it's all about the team. And we're professionals here. And we're going to keep the main thing. Perfect. Great. Easy. Crafted that in about 10 seconds. No problem at all to bring that up. But it becomes a big deal when you make it a big deal. And it's not a big deal. We literally had Asia Wilson hit one of the game-winning shots in the WNBA Finals over a married couple in DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. We had Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Smith in a very public relationship on the Dallas Wings last year. Like, this happens all the time in the W. This happens all the time in women's sports. I watched an off-season docuseries called The Off-Season about the NWSL, and one of the gay players talked about how that's a big thing in the NWSL is when you play against your ex, or you play with your ex on the same team, or you know, a relationship blossoms when you're playing together. Like, it happens all the time. It's not something that's taboo. It's not something that we have to be all hush-hush about, especially when these players are public about it on their own social medias and in their own, you know, media ventures in and of itself. I think transparency and being open and honest about it is always a good thing. But if you want to keep basketball, if you want to keep it on the court, you can totally do that without being weird about it. So I think that the WNBA needs to just take a little dose of reality when dealing with the media and understand that we are all adults here, understand that we're not really trying to get in gotcha moments, especially on draft night when you're reunited with your former teammate and your significant other. It just didn't need to be this big of a deal. To your point, it's the W making a big deal and negative press out of something that didn't need to be a big deal and really should be nothing but positive.
Also, there's a fair line of questioning for anyone covering a team of, did this relationship factor in to your decision at all, negative or positive, right? Like, as we've talked about before, I think you have to prepare. There's a reason why there are many companies across the United States that don't love to employ couples, because what happens when couples break up, right? You want to presume that Azzi and Paige are going to be together forever if they're still together and they're happy. And like, you just want to presume that whatever they want, they ride off into the sunset and get what they want. It's still fair in the line of questioning to ask a team how they considered these things. What went into their process? Did they factor any of the personal life situation into sort of how they brought everybody together? Sure, the answer to that's probably going to be no. And Azzi's, none of this means she's not deserving of being the first overall pick. Like, this isn't if this, then that. These are just tentacles to stories that are interesting. And at the end of the day, one thing that I think everybody forgets sometimes is that when you cover these teams, when you're a beat writer on these teams, or when you're writing articles, you're trying to find stories that are interesting to the broadest set of the audience, to most people. You want to tell great stories so that people invest in athletes and they invest in teams. And to me, Caroline, that's the opportunity that comes from it. So to throttle it down and then create a negative news story, like, to be clear, nothing that the reporter was doing, I don't even know who the reporter was, so I have no need to catch this reporter's back. I'm just saying, nothing the reporter was doing was a negative at all. The Wings specifically turned it into a negative when they handled it so poorly. And that's a moment. To your point, if it was a gotcha moment, if a reporter is doing the worst of the worst, then what they should do at that point is they should just revoke that person's credential moving forward. That's the simple thing. All right. Plenty more to come on this. Plenty more to come on the W, as we love covering it on this show. But coming up next, we're going to get into all of the action from the NBA from a betting standpoint with Ben Fawkes.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concern, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and the forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CC Maunoa that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now, if you have CC Maunoa on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you going to just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's going to try to go low on him.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Former NBA player and assistant coach Damon Jones is expected to become the first person to plead guilty to sports gambling charges that were brought forth by the Department of Justice last fall, which led to the arrests of more than 30 people per the Associated Press. To break this down, and then we'll get into some NBA fun, but we bring in Yahoo Sports senior betting analyst Ben Fawkes. Ben, what does this mean for Damon Jones, and what's it mean for the ongoing case?
Yeah, it'd been so long. It was nice not to have to discuss a sports betting scandal, right, for a couple months. It was a breath of fresh air. But this is the ongoing case. This happened in the fall, and if you remember, there's kind of two cases wrapped up a bit into one. One is the sports betting kind of insider information case. Damon Jones is a part of that, and then there's also the illegal poker mafia rigging case. And Damon Jones is a part of that one as well. So there are a couple people in both. Damon Jones originally pleaded not guilty in both cases. And this is basically, he requested a change of, not change of opinion, but essentially a change of plea hearing. So saying he's planning on pleading guilty in the sports betting case, still planning on pleading not guilty in the poker case. And if you remember, this was Damon Jones essentially leveraging allegedly his relationship with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, to give bettors information on their injury availability before it was publicly known. In this case, a game that nothing beforehand seemed like LeBron wasn't going to play in early 2023. Damon Jones allegedly texts somebody, they get down large amounts of money. LeBron James doesn't end up playing, the Lakers lose, and the bettors win. With Damon Jones allegedly texting, quote, "Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out." So again, if that text message is accurate, seems like, and they obviously had a lot in the indictment before, but it's important because this is the first person in the case who is going to plead guilty. And Damon Jones' lawyer as well said that he is not cooperating. So this is not something where, hey, he's going to get a potentially reduced sentence because he's working with the state. So just an update on the case. That hearing will be in a couple weeks, and then we'll keep going here. I believe in the fall is when potentially the trial was set.
Ben, you are the best of the best. So I know that you and everyone here at Yahoo Sports will keep everyone updated with the latest on that case. But I do want to transition to some basketball that we'll get on the court. The NBA playoffs begin this weekend. The Oklahoma City Thunder are already favorites to repeat with plus 120 odds. Do these odds for OKC make sense in your mind, or are there any other title contenders with maybe odds that would give you a better value that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to go. So it's always important because we hear the word value a lot in sports betting. And in essence, value is just there's a number or percentage you think the outcome is going to happen, and you're comparing that to the odds, right? So the Thunder, it seems like, whoa, plus 120. But when you actually think about it, they're going to have probably a pretty easy first round series. They now don't have to face the Nuggets or the Spurs in the second round. So potentially an easier second round series against a banged up Lakers team or a Rockets team. And so all of a sudden then they only have to face one of those two teams, or I guess if you include the T-Wolves, in the conference finals. So it is an easier run. And I think the Thunder have had such short odds. It's been so long. I think we forget they started 24-1, 23-1. And they closed very strong as well. So there's been a lot of talk about the Spurs, about the Nuggets. But I do think those Thunder odds are only probably going one way, and that's getting shorter and potentially odds on, meaning minus 110, minus 120. So if you like the Thunder, I would bet them now. In terms of some other teams, I think the Nuggets are interesting at 10-1. There was that kind of, were they avoiding the Timberwolves? Were they not avoiding the Timberwolves late in the season? Obviously, winning 12 straight is a nice way to go into the playoffs. And assuming Aaron Gordon is healthy, obviously Jokic healthy, Peyton Watson comes back, they're not a team that's going to fear any team. And there's obviously a team that can beat any team as well. They feel like they probably match up well with OKC and arguably gave them the best series last year. And that's when the Nuggets weren't fully healthy. So I think that's one at 10-1 that I'd potentially look at.
All right, so then walk me through the Celtics on that. Why are they so above everybody else in the East?
Yeah, the Celtics are one of the interesting stories in the NBA, right? We didn't know when Jason Tatum was coming back. And we didn't know if he came back, how he was going to look. Well, we've had both those questions answered, and both of them are pretty positive. He came back a lot earlier than I think we expected, and he's looked a lot better than I think anyone could have expected. And because of that, for the last couple of weeks, really, odds makers have had the Celtics as the number one power-rated team in the East. One odds maker told me yesterday, easily. So they are clearly the number one team, even though they have the number 2 seed. It's also partially their path, right? When they looks like they'll have the Sixers. They're a heavy favorite in that series. And then they face the Knicks or the Hawks. And that's one of the closer series in terms of the odds. So you're not even sure you're going to face the Knicks in the next round. And then even if they got to Detroit, right, they would potentially, by those odds maker, be favored in that series. So even though they're the 2 seed and Detroit's looked good all season, just that fact that Boston now is what your team is currently, not what it was in the regular season. And so if you take what they were in the regular season plus potentially a healthy Jason Tatum, and now you're getting several days of rest in between games, I think that's why the Celtics, both because of that bracket and because of their power rating, that's why they have the shortest odds in the East by a pretty significant margin as well.
But before we get into even more of the nitty gritty and some more specific teams, I want to zoom out a little bit. Bettors have plenty of options of how to bet the NBA postseason, whether it's finals futures or individual games, individual series. In your opinion, what's the best way to bet the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, it's a buffet of betting options, right? Which is always generally a good thing to have choice, and always important to remember the odds makers have to offer odds on all these things. You don't have to bet on all these things. I think to me, I generally would look kind of game to game. You don't necessarily want to just watch a game and not have a bet on it game one, but I do think that there is a lot you can do either in game or game 2 and beyond. Just seeing, again, the playoffs are so matchup dependent. You can really see and zero in, okay, I thought this player was going to be an impact, in the series, and potentially he isn't. And so I think just looking at that, observing if there's certain thesis you have about a game, and maybe you go to, let's say, the player prop market and an over and under because you're saying, hey, I thought this player wasn't going to play a lot. Actually looks like he's going to get a lot more minutes and be an important scorer. Or, hey, this is a bad matchup for someone in their front court, right? And so the backup big is going to get more minutes because the starter is going to be in foul trouble guarding, let's say, Nikola Jokic or someone else. So it's so matchup dependent. And then in the series as well, once you start factoring in potential injuries, you look at a series like the Lakers, right, where potentially Luka comes back, maybe Austin Reeves, probably not. And it's so matchup dependent on then who those players are going against, being guarded against. So in the playoffs as well, there's that different rotations, right? The starters play longer. You're probably going to have fewer players on the court. There's just so much to take in. I would almost have it like, let me watch a game of the series, take a lot of notes, formulate some hypothesis, and then bet on that in game 2 and beyond when I have a little sense of kind of what some of these series look like. And hey, maybe I thought the Hawks really had a chance and they lose by 30 in game 1. Or, hey, the opposite, and the Hawks win game 1. It's like, wow, I really have to reevaluate the series from both a series perspective and game to game.
So then what do we do with the Lakers? Like the Lakers-Rockets are a great series on paper, great brands, but I have no idea who's actually going to be healthy with the Lakers this postseason.
Yeah, this is all a little bit of speculation, right? Which is great in betting because whenever we have variance and uncertainty, that can lead to opportunity. And this, to me, the public at BetMGM has been all over the Lakers to win the series. I believe they had, as of yesterday, 96% of the bets, 98% of the money on the Lakers to win. Obviously, still early, but the odds have shifted from the Lakers plus 550 down to, I believe, plus 425. This is going to be, I believe, the 5th biggest underdog the Lakers have been in a first-round series since 1988. It's not a situation that you think of the Lakers underdogs round 1 of the playoffs, but it's really just you're handicapping. Do you think Luka is coming back? Do you think Austin Reeves is coming back? And then to a certain extent, do you think it will matter, right? Depending on what game they come back, you're also asking Luka, who won't have played in several weeks, and or Austin Reeves to come into what most likely is a must-win game in that series. If, let's just say, you're down 2-1, could be down 3-1. So there's a lot to ask of them. To me, I think that is a great price on the Rockets, especially if it's minus 600 or below. You're still just getting a very healthy team with Kevin Durant, very good defensive team. They just have a lot more talent than the Lakers do without those two players. And yes, it's easy to say, okay, without 2 of their 3 best players, but that's kind of what we're looking at. You're looking at a best case scenario where, let's say, Luka comes back, we would expect in game 3, game 4, and then you're kind of assuming that he is Luka and can play 35 minutes and carry the team in that same way without potentially also getting re-injured in a couple minutes in that game. So to me, I think there's a lot of assumptions for the Lakers. I've been surprised kind of at that movement and coming down in the series price. I think the Rockets are a great bet because the far greater likelihood is the Rockets win a couple of those games in LA, and all of a sudden they're hoping that Luka comes back for game 4, game 5, game 6. It might not even matter at that point.
And there's no doubt KD versus LeBron. All eyes will be on that one. But what's another series that stands out to you, Ben, from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I think Knicks Hawks is interesting, but I always got to go to the Nuggets Wolves. Just these two teams having met before in the second round. Obviously, that epic 7-game series. The Nuggets are the far more talented team, and that's obviously reflected in the odds. Is a little surprising. I think the series price about minus 350. The Nuggets have been that hot kind of going into the playoffs. We're not sure exactly about Peyton Watson and the health, but I think you just have a Nuggets team that is more talented, playing better, but a T-Wolves team, can they flip the switch? If there is that switch, they have made back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They've been to Denver. They've won in Denver. They've won a Game 7 down 20 points at halftime in Denver. So they know that they can do it, but that was against a different team and potentially with a better Timberwolves team. So I just don't really know exactly what to make. I think there's a world in which the Nuggets win this series in 5, and I think there's a world in which the T-Wolves win this series in, let's say, 7, just by whether they all get it all together. Ayo Dosunmu is a piece that connects, and they can guard Jokic enough. It kind of comes down to nobody really has anyone to guard Jokic on the T-Wolves or most other teams, and the Nuggets don't have anyone to guard Ant, but also we don't know if Ant is fully healthy. So a really interesting matchup and something, especially down the stretch. The Nuggets looked like they didn't want to play the T-Wolves, but they were still winning every game. And then the Spurs beat them the last game of the season, so they do want to face them. It is definitely a rivalry. These two teams do not like each other, and that's why it should be a great playoff matchup.
Well, you'll be with us every ounce of the way to cover it. We appreciate it. You can follow him on Twitter, X at BFawkes22. Read him at yahoosports.com/betting. Ben, always appreciate your time, man. Have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You too.
Thanks,
Great
Ben.
stuff from Ben, as always. We'll keep the NBA fun going. Coming up next, can't wait. The NBA Playoff Series edition you know you need.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concern, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and the forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CC Maonoa that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now, if you have CC Maonoa on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you going to just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's going to try to go low on him.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Oh, Bart Scott can mean it's only one thing. It's time for Can't Wait, the NBA playoff edition. This is where we're going to go through all the different matchups, and we're going to figure out whether it's great or it's not. If it's great, then it's certainly a Bart. And if we say it's a Bart, you will hear from Bart because you will hear this. Can't wait. But what's the opposite of a Bart, you might ask? Well, on this always classy show, the opposite of a Bart is a fart. So if we don't like it, we're going to tell you it's a fart. You'll hear this. And that's the way we do things here on Yahoo Sports Daily. So that's how we're going to get to Bart or Fart on Can't Wait edition. We'll start with some action from tonight. All right, tonight, Hornets versus Magic. Is this a Bart or a Fart?
This is very simple for me. It's a magic fart, which is just a fart at Disney World. And, yep, and it is a Hornet Bart.
Can't wait.
Which sounds a lot less cool than a magic fart. Look, it's as simple for me as this. The Hornets are so fun to watch. The Hornets have the good vibes going. The Hornets are a fun team that I think everyone across America is rooting for. The Magic are boring. The Magic have bad vibes. The Magic don't want to be there. Like, watching the Magic is like watching somebody wake up for their like desk 9 to 5 that they literally hate. That's how it feels watching this Magic team. So it's fun to watch the Hornets, brutal to watch the Magic. So that's what it is. Magic fart, Hornet Bart.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to call this fart, but no. I'm going to call it a Bart because our producer, Doug Branson, is going to be excited for this. You're excited for this. You're in Charlotte. We are Hornets stands. The Hornets are about to make it to the playoffs. So therefore, as a result, boom, this one gets a Bart. What about also tonight, Warriors versus Suns? How do we feel about this one?
Yeah, this is a Bart coming off of Steph's vintage Steph performance against the Clippers. It's a Bart because we'll talk about Draymond Green and how he locked up Kawhi in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, this is just a fart. Like, this is a fart parading around as a fart. Yeah, because this is an inconsequential game to me. Like, neither of these two teams are going to do anything of substance, I don't believe, in the postseason. So it's really just kind of delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, congratulations to whichever team picks up their last win of the year tonight, because it won't help them after that. But yeah, I guess, I was going to call this a fart, but you're right, it's a fart. Like, this is sort of the, like, even sitting at the hotel bar after the game, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, Suns Warriors, there we go. Like, it just doesn't have the cachet we're used to. Let's go to some of the series we're going to see over the course of the weekend. All right, let's start with the series that will begin on Saturday. So Raptors, Cavs, the series, not game one, but the series. Raptors, Cavs, Bart or a fart?
Fitzy, I really tried. I really tried to come up with ways to sell this series to you and to everybody watching and listening. Thank you very much, by the way. I couldn't. It's a fart. Like, I really tried. I really tried to come up with cool storylines, fun ways to look at this matchup. Overall, it's kind of boring to me, Fitzy.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% right. This thing's a fart all the way through. Like, unless you are our producer, Mike Goldfarb, who loves Cleveland through and through, or you live in Toronto, nobody else cares. Like, outside of Toronto and Cleveland, those two markets, nobody is sitting there right now. Be honest with yourself. How many people are sitting there saying, wait, got to change the entire weekend plan because I got Raptors, Cavs. If you don't have a vested interest in either of these teams, it's just, nah. Like, the Cavs, whatever the Cavs are going to do is going to be judged by, whatever, as we talked about Harden earlier, it'll be judged by whatever they're able to accomplish later in the playoffs, if they're able to accomplish anything. Neither of these teams are really championship contenders to me. So, again, we're just watching delayed inevitable playoff death. I'm out on that one. All right, what about this one, though? Okay, we're all in on Jokic. Are we in on Timberwolves versus Nuggets? Wolves, Nuggets, Bart or fart?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, this is a Bart. This is a
Can't
big
wait.
old Bart. The Joker versus Ant. And these are two teams. It's not just a clashing of star power, because that's exactly what it is. It's also two teams with a lot on the line. Two teams that I don't think can afford to go home and go one and done. Like, I don't think either of these two teams, the Timberwolves, after going to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, the Nuggets, after getting an MVP performance from Jokic, who's playing like the best player on the planet, neither of these two teams can afford to go home early. Someone's going to have to do it. So the stakes are incredibly high. The star power is high. Oh, I'm so here for this. It is 100% a Bart.
Yeah, this might be my favorite of all the first-round series. This is the Bartiest of the big Barts. Like, this is the double Bart, this is the triple Bart. We can get all the parts you want possibly in here. Like, more Bart Scott is good. Yep, cheap. Thank you, Bart. Like, I'm all in on this series. And look, I'm all in on Jokic from my heart. My heart wants Jokic to turn around and win the entire thing this year, just so that we can start talking about Jokic more. But any chance to get Jokic versus Ant, I just hope that everybody comes out of this thing. Like, I hope Ant can be healthy. I'm so curious to see what the Nuggets look like in a playoff series. I love every ounce of this one. This one stands out to me as one of the best. How about, then we'll go back to the East, Hawks, Knicks, Bart or fart?
This is a sneaky Bart, in my opinion. This is a sneaky little Bart. The Hawks are a good team. I don't know if we give the Hawks enough credit for being as good of a team as they are, or at least a team that can give you fits. I mean, the Hawks have a top 10 offense in the NBA. I think that if I had to pick any series, this is the one that I would give the best odds of going a full 7 games. I think that the Knicks can stumble over themselves enough, and the Hawks are a good enough team to be able to take any inch that the Knicks give them. I think that the Knicks can play like some of the best teams in the East when Jalen Brunson and Cat and all of these pieces of their team are firing on all cylinders. I think that this is one that's not really going to get talked about because it's not as sexy. It's not, I don't think Hawks Knicks are sexy enough brands. But at least the Hawks aren't a sexy enough brand. The Knicks absolutely are. I think that this is going to be a fun, underrated series. I'll give this one a Bart.
It's a fart. It's a fart because I don't think the Hawks can keep it competitive I hope they can. But look, the other side of it is if you walked into a sports bar tonight and asked casuals to name 3 players for the Atlanta Hawks, I don't think anybody can. So there's just not enough recognition on the other side of this matchup to make it a great matchup against the Knicks. So I'm out on that one. What about Rockets versus Lakers? We talked about that one earlier, but we get the old man brigade. Like, it's the Unk Fest, Rockets, Lakers, but it is KD versus LeBron. So we giving this a Bart or a fart?
It's an old Bart. It's an old Bart.
Can't
Maybe
wait.
more in name recognition than actual basketball. I think this is the perfect matchup for the Lakers. But I mean, we get KD, we get LeBron. Like, yes, that's gonna be a Bart.
Yeah, the name recognition makes it a Bart. The curiosity to see which man can will his team to a victory here makes it a Bart. Like, I've been hard on everybody involved in this matchup. I think even I have to admit that this one's a Bart. How about Sixers Celtics? We got battle of 2 rivals, Bart or a fart?
This is a Bart of brands. Sixers, Celtics, no 2 teams have faced off in the postseason more than the Sixers and the Celtics have. These are 2 teams that hate each other. This is a rivalry. These are 2 fan bases that hate each other. Familiarity breeds contempt, and that's exactly where Celtics Sixers are. So in that, it's a Bart. Like, the lead up to game 1 is going to be a Bart. But the actual basketball, the Sixers are getting waxed. Fair to say, like, they're getting 110% waxed. If it's a gentleman's sweep, I think that is being incredibly fair and generous to the Sixers. This is absolutely, I just threw my pen. I think this is absolutely a game that the Celtics can sweep. They just wash their hands of the Sixers team and they say, okay, who we got next? The Celtics are a wagon. I think that Tyrese Maxey could steal a game. Sure, fine. But this is going to be a Celtics victory, and I think it's going to be easy.
Yeah, Josh, our producer, points out that the Celtics are plus 180 to sweep. Kind of like that. The degenerate in me is like, this is a Bart of brands and a fart of basketball. So it's a bit of both. I love the concept of the Sixers being able to go in and compete, and the fact that they were able to execute both. Nobody does it better than this show staff. But you're right.
Overwhelmed with sound effects.
This is. Yeah, it's amazing. This is less a statement about Philadelphia, more a statement about Boston. Boston is just that stinking good. I like everything that Boston brings to the table in this. I think this ends up being an absolute blowout of a playoff matchup. And then the Sixers are going to have to look in the mirror and figure out what they do to build around this new era. I think there's a moment for hope for the Sixers. It's just not right now. We got one more series to get in here. Trailblazers versus Spurs. I can't believe we're ending with Trailblazers versus Spurs, but where are we on the Bart or fart of Trailblazers? My voice tells you where I am on this. Caroline, where are you on Trailblazers versus Spurs?
Whenever you watch a movie and sometimes you just press fast forward because you're like, I don't want to see this scene. I'm good on this. It's kind of how I feel about this series. It's going to be Spurs in 4. Maybe 5, because that's the fun kind of storyline about this is a young team that's getting its first playoff experience. You do kind of have to learn how to win in the postseason, but the Spurs are better than the Trailblazers in every single way you could ever possibly imagine. I think we can just fast forward past this one, like Spurs in 4, maybe 5.
This one is going to be a slaughter. Like, this series is going to be so out of control. I wish that for series like this, they would do like it's $1 million a man bonus if you can win each game without your biggest star. Like, make them sit Wemby and then see. Like, that's how bad this is going to be. Like, I still believe that the Spurs would win this series in 5 or 6 without Wemby playing at all. But with Wemby playing, this is just going to be an absolute bludgeoning. All of that to say, I know I've farted several of these series. I am so wildly excited for where the NBA playoffs are going to go, though. Once we get through this first round, then we finally get to the best of the best. The best of the best have been really good. I'm excited for that. Also, shameless plug, excited for the Indoor Football League tonight. Jacksonville taking on Orlando. Be sure to check that out. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We will be back right here Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern for more. Enjoy a wild weekend of action. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come hang out with us again Monday morning.